Can I get a mic or a mic and a half? That the source owe me. Shout out to the editor staff. Yeah, I'm all grown, so much better with math. I need a spread in the Forbes, taking the Benjamin bath. Yeah, I'm serving this track like Steffi Graf. Yeah, Roger Federer, there's no competitor.
Urban Tennis, Episode 7, Take the 7. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, joined by my co-host.
Nice to see you guys.
We're taking the 7 train in today to the 2013 US Open. We'll be covering the men's draw, the women's draw, the absence of Maria Sharapova, and taking a look at the ATP 40 rankings live stream and the event that was just held at the Waldorf Astoria. So thanks for joining us, and we'll get started. With the draws being released on Thursday, we've got a better idea of what the matchups and what the storylines are going to be on the men's side. And right away, we're instantly drawn to Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer being drawn in the same quarter for the second straight slam like they were at Wimbledon. That matchup didn't happen, but I want to bring in my co-host now and say, what are the odds you think that happens in New York this time?
I'm going to say 71%. I have no justification for such a precise number, but after seeing Federer and his run in Cincinnati and how close he came to beating Nadal in the quarters at that time, I think Federer still has a lot left. I think maybe not to win it all, but to definitely make it that far and push Nadal to the limit if he makes it to the quarters.
I think it's 95%. I know that's a lot of faith on a 32-year-old guy and a 27-year-old guy with wonky knees, but Nadal's played so well during the summer in Montreal and Cincinnati, and I believe Federer still has that one more run in him, and hopefully, because they've never played at the U.S. Open. You know, they've played at the finals of all 3 slams, but they've never played against each other at the U.S. Open. So it won't be a finals, but a quarterfinals, I think everybody will take that. Other storylines, defending champion Andy Murray is drawn into Novak Djokovic's half, so we won't have a repeat of the finals. But Murray has looked pretty shaky so far. Hasn't won a lot in the summer, but has a relatively easy quarter until he gets Tomas Berdych, possibly in the quarterfinal. What do you make of the defending champion, and do you see any roadblocks in his way?
I think out of the top 4 or 5 players, Novak is definitely the player with the least amount of roadblocks to the final. Because you have a guy like Rafa probably playing the best. He's going to have a tough matchup possibly in the 4th round with John Isner. And yeah, of course he has Andy Murray in the semifinals, but that's a semifinal match is not very difficult to avoid. So anyway, I'm going to pass it back to my co-host now.
Well, definitely. I think, you talked about Novak's draw, but going back to Andy's draw, there really doesn't seem to be anybody in his way, and I think he's going to have a relatively easy way, and it'll give him a good chance to build up some, just playing time and work on those kinks before those quarterfinals. Now we're looking at more of the sleepers in the draw. It's fine. Del Potro's been drawn into Novak's draw, and then we have basically the wide open draw led by David Ferrer, where you have Jerzy Jankovic, Ernest Gulbis, and Milos Raonic. Of those 4 guys I mentioned, the big servers, who do you like the best?
I'm going to say Del Potro. I mean, Del Potro has everyone's expecting him to win a lot of Masters. Not win a lot of Masters events, but to definitely have a chance at both Masters events in Canada and Cincinnati. And he definitely played well. I mean, he could have easily turned some matches, gone into a final, and ultimately won and beat a few players. So I think Del Potro is definitely the strongest of the guys outside of the main grouping UGC in the Grand Slam finals. And of course, a former winner. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, I agree. Del Potro does look the best this summer, and I think he's going to give, if he gets Serena Novak, a great match. They've had so many, just the Wimbledon match this summer. But I'm also looking towards Ernest Gulbis and his quarter. It's a really good draw. I guess Milos Raonic is in the same boat. One of those guys has a chance to break through. They're put alongside David Ferrer, who's relatively very, very consistent in Grand Slams and has not been consistent outside of Grand Slams. So I would not be shocked if he finds himself in the semifinals. But there is a chance in that quarter for those guys to come out. And America's hopes, obviously, the national championship. John Isner, unfortunately, has been drawn into Rafael Nadal's 16, and there's a potential for Nadal-Isner. What do you think Isner can do to carry on that Cincinnati momentum?
Well, it's going to be tough. Isner, out of all the guys who've been hot lately, has definitely had drawn the toughest draw of this tournament. I mean, he's had to face obviously Nadal in the fourth round and Passat. He's gonna have a tough time if he wants to be an American to make some noise this tournament. And moving on, we're gonna go on to the women's draw. And the women's draw, definitely a lot of intrigue. And when we saw the draw release on Thursday, we saw some interesting pairings. So I'm gonna pass it back to my co-host over here and ask him, who do you think has the most favorable drawing in this tournament?
Well, I think it's a mix of the top two seeds. I think Azarenka and Williams are realistically the favorites coming in, and I think Azarenka has the slightly easier draw. Without Sharapova in the draw, she's in a half with Kvitova and Irani, but also Caroline Wozniacki. The sixth seed here is in Sarah Irani's draw. She played pretty well in New Haven, has made the finals at Indian Wells, and this is a really good chance for her to make a deep run into the tournament. But talking about the draw, talking about Serena Williams, 7 Americans were drawn into Serena Williams' quarter. You have an interesting stat that Serena Williams has never repeated at the U.S. Open. Why do you think that is, and what do you think her overall chances and demeanor should be coming into this year?
Well, I think Serena Williams, this is where her 2 most criticized moments in her career has happened, right? Of course, 2009, threatening the umpire, and 2011 with her meltdown in the final against Sam Stosur. So I think, of course, if Serena Williams doesn't run into these problems, she'll definitely be a favorite to win again. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in she has so much pressure on her. Of course, it's she can't do a back-to-back, but you also have to realize how much she's already won. I mean, she's definitely, you can't count her out. She has to be the favorite, and all of the women in the draw are gonna have trouble facing her, no matter what, if it's in the first round, whether it's in the third round, whether it's in the finals. Yeah,
it's really a no-win situation for Serena coming into any slam. A lot of people have picked up on that, how she looked pretty timid and never really went for her shots in her last couple of losses against Lizicki at Wimbledon and Azarenka in Cincinnati. But in between that, she looked very impressive against all her opponents in Toronto. So I think Serena is on great form this year. Doesn't have many losses, doesn't have really any losses of significance. So I think she's definitely the favorite. But it's really unfortunate for American tennis fans that 6 other Americans were drawn into that 16. You have the number 2 American, Sloane Stephens. And if that 4th round match happens between her and Serena, that should be a night match in Arthur Ashe, because that's got a lot of storylines and none of them really involve anything on the court. You got Jamie Hampton, who's had a meteoric rise to the top 25. You have Venus in that section, Coco Vandeweghe, Lauren Risk. So you got tons of Americans in that draw, so they're going to really cannibalize each other. But once again, like we said, that's Serena's quarter to lose, and we hope, and I think not hope, but we kind of think that she's going to hopefully, once I said hope again, will make it out of there. The significant player that's missing this week is Maria Sharapova, Sugarpova. The name change didn't happen, but she's been in the news for a couple of reasons. One, she dropped Jimmy Connors after one match, that one loss in Cincinnati, had her dad call. That's another issue altogether. Has been really plugging her Sugarpova candy products, and there's a rumor that she would change her name for the Open. And then she pulled out of the Open with some shoulder bursitis in her right shoulder, which is I think probably the worst of the 3, because she's such a competitor and she likes to play and likes those matches, and it's only her 3rd slam that she hasn't played in. So tell us about the couple of weeks that have been Maria Sharapova, and what effect do you think it has on her going forward and the tournament altogether?
Well, yeah, definitely the tournament loses the second most notable brand name they have. I mean, of course, Maria Sharapova, but on the flip side, I think it's interesting, the reaction to the Sugarpova news. I mean, of course, it came right after the Jimmy Connors dismissal and with her injuries, right? So a lot of people are saying, is she not only physically having problems, but is she even, I don't know if it's the right word, but is she having a bit of mental problems right now? Like, with her game, of course. Does she have the right focus on how she wants to approach this game right now? Like, does she need this break if she wants to come back and she wants to win more slams in the following year?
Well, there's an argument for that, but I could never kind of latch on to that. I think Maria is one of those players that is so competitive and such a grinder that she loves playing. And her brand has been so well maintained. She is the highest grossing female athlete in the world. So any of those rumors that she's kind of lost her way and that her focus has been gone, whether it be the Gregor Dimitrov stuff at Wimbledon with Serena, I think those are largely false. It's just unfortunate her shoulder gave her trouble here, and I think she'll be back with that same mental edge that she's always had. Whether the game follows it up and whether she can bring that game to the highest level, that's another question altogether. But any final thoughts on Maria Sharapova and the Jimmy Connors issue?
Well, I think to be honest, Jimmy Connors wasn't going to be a long-term coach anyway, so I can't really add much to that. I mean, it was probably shorter than it should have been if you're going to come with all this fanfare, but you just got to move on from that. And I think Jimmy Connors has kind of told the press that, so we'll move on from that too. And we're going to move on to our next topic now. And there was a big presentation today in New York City of the 40th anniversary of what they're now called as the ATP Emirates rankings. And it was a great presentation. A lot of former world number ones, history wrote about the rankings and just how it changed the sport and how it was so influential on maybe not even tennis, but on all other sports beyond that. And I'm going to pass it back to my co-host who's going to add a few more comments about this.
Yeah, it was just a great event. The brain trust of Brad Druitt, the former ATP boss who passed away this year from ALS. His dream was to celebrate the 40th anniversary by bringing a lot of number ones together. And today we had, I believe, 19 of them on the stage. And it's just a great chance in any sport when you can get all these guys together. You had Ilia Nastase, the first one in 1973 on August 23rd to take over the ranking all the way up to Novak Djokovic. And it was really interesting to see a lot of the older guys praising Roger, Rafa, and Novak and how they were maintaining the game. I think more than anything else in the comments, beyond how it felt to be number one, was their feeling that they felt tennis was in a great place. And it was always fun to see some of the lesser known guys. Marcelo Rios, he was a number one in 98, and he'll always have that. Juan Carlos Ferrero in 2003. Some of the lesser known guys they get to share the stage with a Roger Federer, with a John McEnroe. So it's such a great event. It's very similar to the WTA 40 event that was held in Wimbledon during the Middle Sunday this year. That brought together number ones there. It's just a great chance for younger fans, older fans to see the history of open era tennis all on one stage.
Yeah, and I like a few of the points that are brought up, like the importance of having a ranking system. I mean, it's unfathomable today. I mean, we've pretty much spent a couple of lifetimes almost just with this ranking system, right? But before that, like tennis tournaments were drawn on very subjective, very opaque methods. And I think when you compare that it was more like a sport like what we see now with mixed martial arts, what we see now with boxing, right? It was about getting the best promotion out of your tournament and not just based on merit. And I know it's different in combat sports. You can't really do as much, but I think other sports can benefit from a system that is somewhat similar to what was implemented in tennis 40 years ago.
It's a great point you bring up with boxing and UFC. Yeah, it was a lot of promotion, and it seems very archaic that tennis would be almost a patronage sport, where the Americans would favor Americans and Australians would favor Australians. But the rankings have really liberalized it, where you have a Serbian right now as the number one player. It's unfathomable, but almost so natural to today's thing. We like to obviously edge over to technology, but we had the chance to view this on a live stream on the ATP site and just talk about, I think it's largely positive that they're able to live stream such a great event for fans all across the world. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially in this day and age, watching a live stream is just as good as watching on any sort of television you could find, at least in 2002. But most of the time, HD feeds, definitely top notch. Good job, ATP.
Yeah, definitely. If you get a chance to watch it, we'll post a link on our blog to it in this comment section. But it's a great chance to just see a great collection of history on stage. We're almost done with episode 7. Our 7 train is nearing Flushing, New York, if we continue our analogy. But like always, we like to end with a couple of games. And this week we're going to do challenges, which is essentially we pose 3 challenges to the fans, to the players, to the officials, and to the tournament. following our Hawkeye model. So I'm going to start off with my first challenge. I challenge all the fans in New York to really get behind Roger Federer once more. I know you've been great supporters of Roger, but I think he really needs that last push from the fans. I think he's got a great run in him left, a la Jimmy Connors, a la Pete Sampras. So all the fans heading to the USTA grounds this week, please continue to support Roger, and I think we got one magical run in him.
All right. And my next challenge goes out to the broadcast. I mean, this is the first year we have a guaranteed Monday final. So I really want CBS to ensure that all their top affiliates, and not just their CW sub-affiliates, are showing this final live so it can reach as many Americans as possible.
And my final challenge is obviously one of the big stories that happened since our last podcast was Marion Bartoli retiring. So I challenge all the players in those 6 to 15 seeds in the WTA to really latch on to the Marion Bartoli inspiration. There is a run in you, right? Nothing is set in stone. It's not going to be necessarily Williams versus Azarenka. So if you're Roberta Vinci, if you're a Maria Karolinko, if you're a Sam Stosur, have that belief that Marion Bartoli had during Wimbledon, and maybe on that final Sunday, you will be a U.S. Open champion. Now I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, who has our social media highlight of the week.
All right, social media highlight. I think a lot of people may have seen the video that ESPN posted this week on YouTube, and it's been shared a lot, of Roger Federer granting a wish to a young girl who was a big Roger Federer fan, and it was a very heartwarming story. But this is just so hard to ignore. I mean, as you may also know, Anna Ivanovic joined Twitter, and she posted a tweet that said, "Hey guys, nice to meet you," smiley face. And then with that, she posted possibly one of the most photogenic pictures I've seen in my life. You may think I'm joking, but you must see this picture. So just head over to her Twitter account, at Anna Ivanovic, and I may just post this in the blog link, so you have to see this picture, okay?
Okay, heartwarming story to awesome picture. We can see where our co-host is. Thanks for listening to episode 7. Once again, please follow the blog, urbantennis.wordpress.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the conclusion of everything US Open. Thanks again. Episode 7. Take the 7.